This cheeky little chappy is Honda's NX500, and it's very closely based on their CB500X platform from a few years ago, a bike that was really popular and one I actually owned. So this is the first video in a new series called Real World Rides, where I take a motorcycle and put it through its paces to let you, the viewer, know is it any good to live with on a day-to-day basis. So I'm going to take this bike on the motorway, we're going to do some country lanes and a little bit of gravelly off-road stuff, nothing too crazy, and I'll even ride it at night just for you, even though it's January and it's absolutely freezing. So without further ado, and before I freeze my nibblers off, let's get going. So if you're going to be buying this motorcycle, this Honda NX500, chances are you're going to have to do a fair amount of motorway work for commuting or touring or whatever you need. So how is it on the motorway? Well, we're doing 70-ish miles an hour. We're just over 5,500 RPM. Wind blast, what is that like on this bike? So the screen is quite short, so I'm getting a little bit of buffeting up towards the sort of middle to the top of my helmet. Now I am wearing a peaked helmet, but it is relatively similar on a non-peaked helmet as well. It's a little bit of buffeting at some motorway speeds, but it's not too bad. I think I could live with it. You know, if we want to pick up the speed a little bit, we're at now 6,000 RPM. The buffeting has got a little bit worse, just at the top of my lid there. But if we drop back down to kind of normal UK motorway speeds, it doesn't do a terrible job. There's a little bit of wind blast on my chest, but it's kind of very slight. Legs and knees are pretty well protected actually, because of the way the tank is shaped here in the front fairing. So you have got a bit of weather protection for the leggies. Let's talk about the comfort and the seating. The seat is very comfortable. It's a one-piece seat, so you and your pillion are sat on the same bit, but it's quite a long seat, so you can move around after, you know, if you've been riding for a couple of hours, and I have ridden this bike for 2-3 hours, and towards that I have kind of got a little bit uncomfortable, but you can kind of adjust your seating position, and it's not too bad. I'd give it a, you know, sort of 7 out of 10 if I was to score it. Tank range, let's talk about that. I think it's about 17 litre tank, and because it's a very frugal little engine, you're going to get around about 250 to 300 miles tank range depending on how you ride, which I think is really good. Vibrations at this speed, there's absolutely nothing to talk about. Obviously every single internal combustion engine vibrates, but I can feel a little bit through the bars, but it's nothing to report really, and it doesn't cause any issues on longer journeys. Perhaps if you're up towards the red line and you're doing, I don't know, 90 to 100 miles an hour on an autobahn, you might start to feel it then, but certainly at UK motorway speeds it's absolutely fine. It's quite a windy day today actually, so I am getting blown around a little bit. There's no cruise control unfortunately, so we can't test that out today. The screen is lovely and legible, easy to read. But yes, motorway stuff, the NX500 does it very well. We'll turn off traction control by holding this button up, then you'll see this sign, have a little cross through it, or it will change to that one underneath. There we go. So you know, this bike isn't a gnarly off-road machine. That's denoted by its cast wheels and 19-inch front wheel as well. The bars aren't particularly high up, so you do have to kind of lean over a little bit, which does compromise your off-road position. But for this sort of stuff, these gravelly little roads, it's absolutely fine. The Showa big piston forks are doing really well actually. They make it very plush to ride. It's actually quite enjoyable. I do find the throttle a little bit sensitive. You know, it's got rubber pegs to help with vibrations for road riding, but you could take those rubbers out or swap the pegs, I'm sure. But you know, for this sort of stuff, this sort of light gravelly fire road stuff, it's absolutely fine. And when pushing on a little bit, the suspension is really nice. We don't have ABS brakes, sorry, off-road ABS. Unfortunately, you can't you can't disable the rear ABS system, which is a bit of a shame. But you can definitely have a bit of fun. Farmers have got to do their jobs. I'm just dicking about. Ooh, but you've got to be careful with the big potholes, because like I said, cast wheels, you do not want to be getting that wrong on cracking a wheel. Right, so that's our little fun off-road section anyway. And you know, if you want to put the traction control back on, you literally just hold that button up again while you're riding. So there you go, light off-road for the NX500 isn't a problem. It'll do it all day long. Okay, so we're back on the road now. I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the road performance of the bike. So road performance is actually pretty good. Obviously it's not going to be the quickest motorcycle out there, as it's only got that little parallel twin engine pumping out 47 horsepower, but it is surprisingly peppy actually. Got quite a nice little bit of torque. First gear is ever so short. I would probably look to getting a different front sprocket just to lengthen those gears out a little bit. One thing that really surprised me about the bike is the suspension and the handling, because I owned a 2016 CB500X and the suspension, it was a little bit underdamped and it was a bit wallowy, but this new Showa big piston suspension is really plush, but it's quite firm, so it gives you kind of a sporty, firm feeling. It feels very stable, very confident over on the side of the tyre. It having a 19-inch front wheel, it does feel a little bit strange at first. I've been riding a lot of standard road bikes with a 17-inch front wheel, but once you get used to how it feels at the front, you can really have a bit of fun with it. You can sort of push it on a bit and it sort of starts to come alive a bit. Comfort levels are pretty good. Anything up to like an hour and a half, I'd say, before needing to have a break. It's perfectly doable. I have taken my lady on the back and she said the seat isn't bad. Not the most comfy she's ever ridden, but certainly doable for an hour and a half, 2 hours. You can go touring on these 2 up, but you know, with only 47 horsepower, you're going to have to plan your overtakes and stuff like that a little bit ahead. You might feel a little bit underpowered if you've got luggage and your partner on the back, but it can do it, and I've actually done it on the CB500X. I did do a bit of a tour with the lady on the back, so it can be done for sure. Throttle response is a little bit direct actually. It does take a little bit of getting used to. Like any machine, there are pros and cons depending on how you look at things. So cons could be, you know, it's not the quickest bike out there. You do have to get the engine revving quite hard to get the most out of it, but at the same time it's got a nice amount of torque low down, so you know, there's a pro and there's a con there. First gear is super short. I do find it a little bit annoying, but you can get a different front sprocket if you want to change that. Other negatives. For an adventure style bike, it would have been nice to have the option to turn off ABS to the rear. There isn't that option. You've got the traction control button just there, which is nice and easy, but unfortunately ABS is something you're just going to have to live with on both wheels, which if you do a little bit of green laning and stuff like that, it does compromise things a little bit. You can't lock the rear wheel up and sort of use that to balance the bike and flick the tail out. These are all minor things really though. There's nothing really hugely detrimental about this bike. It is pretty good. The screen there, the windscreen could be a bit taller I think and a little bit wider, but you know, I'm sure there's an aftermarket option if you're into that. Lots of pros. The engine is surprisingly pokey, suspension is great, brakes are fantastic and they actually feel quite progressive. You know, a lot of Honda brakes, they're quite wooden. Once they get to like the ideal biting point. There's nothing else more there other than, you know, you just kind of feed more power. But these are actually quite progressive. I like that. And they're only axial twin piston Nissan calipers as well, so quite impressive. You've now got the new dash from the Transalp and the Hornet and that sort of stuff. So you've got, you know, the RoadSync app if you want to connect up your phone. And I think it does turn-by-turn navigation, but also you can control your phone. Seat is pretty comfy. You know, it's a fairly comfortable riding position. Good for your commuting, your touring, weekend fun, a little bit of off-road. Although the bars are a little bit low, you could certainly change those bars out for something a bit higher up, provided all the cables still reach, of course. I love it in this red colour. I don't think this is an option for 2026. I think they've got a few different weird looking colours, but it's a shame because I imagine the red sold quite well. You've got the little sat-nav bar here as well, which is nice little feature. No 12-volt socket, unfortunately. You have to purchase that as an extra. But I do believe this bike has a USB-C port underneath the seat. No riding modes either, as far as I know. No riding modes. But, you know, 47 horsepower, do you really need riding modes? It's all done by your right hand there, so we could sit there and argue that all day long, couldn't we, really? So who is this bike aimed at? Well, you could certainly say it's aimed at a new rider who's just passed their full motorcycle test. Perhaps they're limited to the A2 because of their age. And this is an A2 motorcycle, which means you are limited to 47 horsepower, so you could buy this and not have to have it restricted, which is good. But also, you know, if you're an experienced rider and you just want to step down to a smaller, cheaper, lighter bike, perfect bike to do it, but you still want to have a bit of adventure styling and a little bit of ability to go off-road doing some of that lighter stuff. This, again, could be a perfect motorcycle for you. It's certainly frugal. You know, you'll get about 300 miles out of a tank, there or thereabouts, depending on how you ride. I can't imagine the insurance is going to be too high. You are forced into the e-clutch ecosystem, but the good part of that is that it still has a clutch, so you could basically pretend that it doesn't have the e-clutch system and just ride it as a normal clutch bike. However, you do have to have the e-clutch system bolted onto the side of your engine, so it does stick out a little bit. So we could also put that in the cons for the next iteration of this motorcycle. But it is fun, you know, you can really have a bit of fun with this bike. It does handle quite nicely. It's one of those machines, and I might have said it earlier on, but it's way more than the sum of its parts. You can look at this bike's spec sheet and think, well, that's not going to be any fun, until you ride it and you're like, actually, this has got quite a bit of character to it, and it handles well, it goes well, it stops well, it looks nice. Subjective, I know, but it's going to be reliable. It's going to get you to where you need to go. It's going to be fairly cheap, frugal. You know, what's not to like, but still fun as well, and that's the key point, really. Fun is what it's all about. I think this gets a Dan giggle factor. I'm going to say 7 out of 10 because it surprises me. It's more fun than you'd imagine, and it kind of proves the point. You don't need big power figures or big numbers for a bike to be fun, and I think that's the essence of motorcycling, really. Right, so I've just come to my local shopping centre just so we can do some slow speed manoeuvres and see what the bike is like. So we're just putting away in first there, obviously. I'm having to slip the clutch a little bit just because the revs do get super low. But let's see how slow we can get it. So I'm not on the throttle at all, and it's doing 6 miles an hour. It is a little bit snatchy, small bit snatchy, yeah, just a little bit in first gear. Not the smoothest in the world. Rear brake is a little bit, I don't know if it's underpowered or it just needs bedding in. And also, what's it like to push around? So if we just kill the engine, because we don't want to. So yeah, if you have to kind of push it and stick it in a garage, what's that like? Easy peasy. And this is a little bit uphill actually as well, but yeah, that's a piece of cake. Anyone could do that. side stand. I think there's an optional centre stand. But also let's reverse it back over there. Yeah, nice and easy, just using the front brake there just to control the speed a little bit. So yes, very, very easy. No problems at all with that. Let's jump back on it. So let's just do a little U-turn just here. Yeah, piece of cake. Nice steering lock actually. Yeah, not bad, not bad. A little bit, like I said, a little bit snatchy in first gear. But to alleviate that, you just feather the clutch a little bit. Just getting a little bit lumpy at 10 miles an hour a second though, so we'll go into first. Yeah, not bad. Not the smoothest experience, but perfectly adequate.
Thankfully, the NX500 improves over the CB500X's rather woeful night riding capabilities with an all-new LED headlight unit. Honda say the new headlight has the same beam penetration but a much wider spread. Due to the new headlight's improved beam spread, it now gives better visibility through the corners in dark conditions. I found the headlight was more than adequate at night, and certainly an improvement over the CB500X's headlight, especially on these rather dark country roads. Oh, and it also has a nifty little backlit toggle switch too, which is a nice touch on such a cheap bike. The Honda NX500 continues on where the CB500 left off, which is that it offers a low cost of ownership but delivers a versatile motorcycle that's as comfortable riding gravel fire roads as it is commuting hundreds of miles on the highway. It has an excellent tank range, decent comfort, and when the road gets twisty, actually offers enough fun for more experienced riders. For those who are new to biking, this could be the perfect first foray into adventure touring. There's plenty of aftermarket extras should you want to load this bike up with crash bars and luggage. While no bike is perfect, I think the NX500 still offers enough value and fun to be classed as one of the most underrated bikes, but only for those who've not spent any time on one. A quick look on any groups on the internet will show you just how much the CB500X and new NX500 are loved by so many riders around the world.
So thank you for watching, and hopefully you've enjoyed this first video in the new series Real World Rides. Let me know down below in the comments what bike you'd like to see next in this series. Don't forget to like the video, don't forget to subscribe, and until next time, you take care. Peace.